Hello, this is Daniel Mart, and today I'm going to be doing another video. This time around, I'm going to be doing a video basically discussing what to expect at a college audition. So yeah, school basically has already started. I started college this week, or last week, depending when I post this. So, kind of got me thinking, last year, I did my research when it came to college auditions. I chose my monologues, and, I kind of after going through the auditions, I just kind of wish I would have known a bit more about how the audition process was. By doing research, I knew how it went, but just didn't expect it to be the way it was. I suppose I just didn't expect it to be, I guess, as big, I suppose. So, or as competitive. So I just kind of wanted to do this video for anybody who's currently applying to college and in terms of acting for theater and acting majors and stuff like that, BFAs, BAs, whatever. Basically, what to expect at a college audition. So there are two things that they always ask you to bring. So this is before you even go to the auditions, and sometimes you will see this on the application when you're doing it online, and they'll tell you or remind you, or they'll send you an email once you confirm that you're going to the audition. They're gonna send you an email and basically say, don't forget to bring a copy of your resume and headshots. So in a sense, it is like a regular audition where you bring your resume, you bring your headshots, and you give it to the judges. And just think of the judges as casting directors, because that's essentially what they're doing. They're casting you for the next year of actors in their school. So yeah. Now, in terms of time, how long will it take? The shortest audition for college that I went to took about an hour and a half. The longest one was about 4 hours. And that's just on waiting time. Really, the audition process in and of itself, it was only about, will really only be about between 2 and 15 minutes, give or take. That's what I've seen. That's more or less average. The shortest one I did was about 5 minutes, and the longest one I did was about close to 12 minutes. So that's more or less how long the actual audition process is. Most of the audition really is just waiting. You wait in a waiting room usually, and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting until your name gets called up, and you could go to the judges and actually audition. So yeah, now a few things to actually keep in mind. Keep in mind that when you're going to the school to audition, keep in mind both what school you're auditioning for and when you're auditioning for them. So, for example, New Road School of the Arts, it's a pretty big acting school, especially down in here in the South. Around the Florida, Georgia, Alabama. The South North America area. The Southern states. Big it's a pretty big acting college. They call it the Juilliard of the South. It is somewhat smaller than Juilliard in terms of their size, but it's still considered like a Juilliard of the South. So yeah. However, the thing is, despite it being like the Juilliard of the South, despite it being known for the fact that it's a huge acting school, when I went to audition, it was only really me and one other person. It was this girl who was auditioning, and that's about it. That's basically everybody who was there during my audition time for my college audition. And initially I found it kind of weird, but looking back at it, I was like, you know what, it makes sense. It makes sense that it was just me and one other person. I would have expected it made sense that it was just a little bit people. Maybe I would have expected a bit more people, like closer to 5 or maybe 10 people, somewhere around there. But at the end, it makes sense that there's just so few people, because by that time, I think I auditioned April or May. I have a video about that, so go check out the channel somewhere. But I have a video about me going to the audition at New Roads, and overall, it just made sense because I auditioned at April or May, which is by that point, everybody's already chosen what colleges they're going to go to. So it makes sense that there's basically nobody at this audition. So keep in mind when you're going to audition. So, that's New Roads. But however, you start off very early into the audition process. So say closer to like December or January. I went to Juilliard's. Now again, keep in mind what school you're applying to. I went to Juilliard's, the biggest acting school in the country. One of the biggest, period. It's right up there with DePaul and Carnegie. So it is definitely one of the best, well-known schools in terms of acting. When I went there, they said that this is so far our biggest this is the most people we've had in attendance. We have over 400 people, close to 500 people, and I will admit that actually did scare me a little bit. But yeah, I mean, just keep in mind when you're auditioning and to what school you're auditioning. So they had close to 500 people. So that's Juilliard very early on in their auditioning process. And then I just told you New Roads very late into the auditioning process, which had 2 people. So you have, and they're both very big schools. But then I also went to FIU. When I went there's only about 35 people, and it was in the middle of the audition process. It was in March. So yeah, I believe it was in March. So it was in March, and there was only about 35 people. Again, it was in the middle, so there should have been a lot of people. However, given the fact that FIU isn't known for their acting program, it made sense that there's only about 35 people. And given the fact that I do intern with them, or I did intern with them, they said that the most auditionees they had in one day was about 70 people. So that made sense, the fact that they didn't really get that many people comparatively to like other schools into their audition circles per day. And yeah, also keep in mind, what month, what day, because, some days are going to be a bit bigger. And also the time slots, because during the day I went for Juilliard's, and they had 2 time slots, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and it was spread between Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday across the next 4 months. And also keep in mind what city, because, for example, Juilliard, they are based in New York, but I know they also have one in Chicago. And I know the ones in Chicago weren't as big comparatively. It still had a huge turnout, but it just wasn't as big comparatively from what I heard or from what I found out later on. So yeah, keep in mind what school you're auditioning to, and what the time frame is, when you're auditioning, and just also where, like what the location is. If it's not your home city, odds are it's not going to be a huge turnout per se. I went to my DePaul audition in New York. It was actually the day after Juilliard, and they didn't really have a huge turnout, which I was actually kind of a bit surprised. It was also it was closer to like 50 people. It was in the afternoon, but still, I just found it a bit weird that it was only about 50 people, and still, DePaul is considered one of the biggest acting schools in the country. It's not, up there with Carnegie or, it's not with CalArts, Carnegie, or Juilliard's, but it's still considered pretty big in terms of acting, and yet there's only about 50 people. But then again, they're in New York. It's not their hometown, so it makes sense. So again, just keep in mind, because the amount of people in the audition may scare some people. I will admit, when I first entered into the Juilliard room and saw all those people, close to 500 people, I was actually shit. So that's how many people are up for this part. And just think about it, give or take 500 people times 4, because it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, times 4 again, because it's 4 weeks, because there's 4 weeks in a month, times at least 3, because they're doing this from January to March. There's a lot of people. There's a shit ton of people, and that's only Juilliard, okay? In general, the audition, the amount of people who are gonna go to a school audition, like as a whole, is gonna be easily close to between 500 and 1,000 people, easily, okay? And then after that, it just fluctuates depending on what school you go to. So keep in mind how many people are going to be there. And if there's a lot of people, and if you're going to a school that's known for acting, and there's a lot of people, you have to step up your game. You want to make yourself stand out, and just don't be scared by that same virtue. If you go to a school and where it doesn't seem where that's many auditionees, that doesn't mean you can relax. Still make sure you stand out, but just keep in mind again what school you're auditioning to. And just because there's a lot of people or not enough people who are auditioning to a certain school that you apply to, doesn't mean that it's a bad school or it's a really good school, okay? I've heard many bad things about Juilliard. I've heard many good things about Juilliard, okay? FIU isn't known for their acting program, but I know they're a pretty great acting program because I interned for them. Sadly, I didn't get in, which actually came to a surprise to everybody I've worked with, but that's a different story. So yeah, so just keep in mind of how many people are actually going to these auditions. When you get there, make sure to be nice to everybody, and it's just like a regular casting call or audition. You have to be nice to everybody, the judges, the staff, the ushers, whoever's there to sign you in, and all the other auditionees. Just be nice to everybody, because you don't know who's watching. Maybe that kid in the corner who seems kind of off and weird, maybe maybe like a spy, or maybe an usher or a spy or a security guard or whatever, and may tell one of the judges, hey, maybe that kid, you shouldn't really put him in despite the fact he's a great actor, maybe you shouldn't put him in because he's kind of a douchebag. He's being really mean. You know, he's harassing some of the other auditionees, and that's actually what happened at the FIU audition. There was this kid who was basically acting like a big shot. And I did talk to him, and I did think he was a bit arrogant, but I didn't really think much of it because I was kind of just, you know, focusing on myself. And he was a bit arrogant, and come to find out that despite apparently he gave a pretty decent audition. However, the reason he didn't get in was because, in fact, he was just a complete douchebag, and he started asking a bunch of inappropriate questions to some of the people who were working there, and, you know, that's why he didn't get in. So always be nice to the people there and just the auditionees, because again, you never know who may be watching. One thing to always keep in mind, and this happened to every single one of my auditions except for the one at New Roads, because that was only me and one other person. But one thing I noticed is that in every single audition, odds are they are going to split you up into two groups. From what I can tell, it's always going to be people whose last name starts from A to L and people whose last name starts with M to Z. And they're just going to split you up, and, you know, just to make sure that different people, you know, different judges are judging you, if that makes sense. So they're always going to split you up, and the split up may be kind of random at first, and even their orders may be kind of random at first, because in Juilliard, instead of going from M to Z, they actually went from Z to M. They went backwards for some reason, despite the fact that in the A to L group they went in order from A to L. So their orders may be a bit confusing at first, but, you know, just be expected to be possibly split up, especially if there's a huge amount of people, which more than likely there are, and more than likely you're gonna have at least 30 people in the audition, unless it's like really late into the audition process, but that's besides the point. But, you know, just keep in mind that they could split you up, and again, just because they split you up, you should still be nice to everybody. Now, when you actually go when you're actually waiting to have your name called, you know, to audition, there's two things you could basically do. One of them is kind of inadvisable. You could still do it, and it could work out. It did work out for me, but I wasn't really trying to, per se. And then the other one is more or less the most advisable thing you could do. So the most advisable thing you could do is practice your monologue, practice your song. And yes, I did say song. In some auditions, you are going to have to know a song. So, for example, the one at SUNY, I did have to know a song. For Juilliard, I didn't exactly have to know a song. Like, I knew they could ask me to do a song, but, you know, it was one of those things where they kind of just pick at random. So it's, for example, Bobby, Maria, Tom, and Jerry. You guys don't have to do a song. But Daniel, you have to do a song. But then, you know, Fernando, Lawrence, Nicole, and Herschel, you guys don't have to do a song. But then Patricia, you do a song. Caesar, you do a song. And Mariana, you do a song. But you know what? Brent, you don't do a song. But Bob, you have to do a song. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Like, they kind of just chose people randomly as to who does a song. So, you know, be prepared to do a song. Some of them, again, and also this is one of those things you should do research on. Do you have to do a song? More than likely, you are gonna be possibly doing a song. So always just have a song up here in mind, you know, just in case. And as to what song you should do, I'm not gonna say what song you should do, but what I recommend is that you choose something that's from a musical, whether it be a musical theater show or a musical movie. It should be, what I recommend is for it to be a musical, so because that's what everybody recommends. I really don't know how to explain this aside from the fact that, you know, most of these acting programs are for a theater, so it makes sense that you go for a musical and a theater. After that, if you're more of a film person, a musical movie will make sense, since most musical movies are, in a sense, based on a musical theater show, or vice versa. So, for example, you know, something from Grease, or Singing in the Rain, for example, or My Fair Lady, especially classic musicals. So, it's one of those things that it just makes sense. I mean, there's really no other way to explain it. And yeah, so, you know, while you're waiting, just practice your songs, practice your monologues, and, you know, just to make sure you're all set. Now, the one other thing you can do, which is inadvisable, which I accidentally did it in FIU. I really wasn't planning on doing it. It just kind of happened, and that's, you can make connections. In a sense, during that wait time, you can consider that a networking event, because you're talking to different students from across country, possibly from across nations. In Juilliard, I met this one girl from New Zealand, I believe, and yeah, New Zealand, or was it Greenland? New Zealand, Greenland, Dublin. I think that's Ireland. Whatever. I met this girl from some island nation up north Europe, I guess. Um, no, I think New Zealand's by Australia. Whatever. I met this girl from an island besides the point, and she was trying to network with people here in America because she's gonna move. She was gonna move to America regardless. But it's one of those things you don't know who you're gonna meet at these auditions, and because of that, you always kind of try to attempt to network. Now, I actually did this at the FIU audition. I did it kind of unconsciously. I wasn't really planning on doing it. I was talking to this kid who just so happened to be living up in North Miami, and we kind of talked and kind of just changed information. And we've talked every here and there. Every few weeks and so, just checking up on each other, seeing if we have anything, if we have any plays or any short films we could be doing soon or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's inadvisable because everybody's from different states, possibly different countries, so just wouldn't make sense. However, you can still do it. However, it's really inadvisable. What I consider doing it, I mean, I did, but I wasn't really planning on doing it, so take that as you will. So yeah, now when you actually get to the actual audition room, so when they call your name up and you actually audition, there's basically, essentially, you only have to do two things, and that's basically perform both your monologues. And basically, aside from your song, you should have at least 4 different monologues memorized. And you're probably thinking, what the fuck, 4? But I only have to do 2. Yes, you only have to do 2, but it's great to always have 2 backups. So this is basically what I recommend: 2 classical, 2 contemporary. And two of those, one of the classicals and one of the contemporaries being dramatic monologues, and one of the classicals and one of the contemporaries being comedic. So you have all your bases covered as well as the song. And yeah, you normally only perform 2. If they ask for another one, they'll ask for a third one. And if you're really lucky, they'll ask for a 4th one. And if they ask for more, hopefully you have more backed up, but essentially you should only really know 4 plus a song. If they ask for anything more, then your odds are they're really considering you. That's all I'm saying. Actually, in the Juilliard one, they actually did ask me to do a 3rd monologue, which at first, I will admit, at first I was kind of taken aback, but I did it. I was kind of. They asked me, "Hey, can you do a 3rd one?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And I actually thought for a few seconds. I'm like, "Okay, which one should I do now?" And then after a few seconds, I actually performed mine. So yeah, so I did that, and it was no big deal. I will say I probably butchered it just because I wasn't really expecting it, even though I should have, but I wasn't really expecting it. But always expect the unexpected is basically what I say. And yeah, so always have at least 4 monologues backed up: 2 classical, 2 contemporaries, 2 dramatics, 2 comedics, plus the song. And the song again should be from what I recommend. It should be from a musical theater show or a musical movie is what I definitely recommend. Very fast, if you guys want to know what my music of choice was, it was My Shot from Hamilton. So I mean, that's what I chose. I don't know. I was just listening to the soundtrack during the time of my audition, and that's kind of the one that I just happened to memorize, and I just performed it. I performed it at the Juilliard audition and the SUNY audition. So those are the 2 I performed it at. And yeah, now one more thing they may actually do. This didn't happen in all my auditions. This only really happened for my audition for SUNY and for New Worlds, and that is the fact that someone, it could be the judges themselves, or it could be another judge who comes in or asks you to come somewhere else. They may do kind of a Q&A with you, asking you, how did you get into theater? What made you want to become an actor? What made you want to apply to our school specifically? What other schools have you applied to? Etc., etc., etc. Now, sometimes they'll give you a form to fill out right before the audition, and they may look at the form as well. But besides that, they'll ask you directly because they want to know who you are as a person, your personality. And again, this is why you should be nice to everybody, because just because you pretended to be nice to the judges, while you were being a douchebag to the people outside, doesn't mean, oh, he was really nice. Oh, wait, what, he was a douchebag? No, he's not going to be here. That's basically what's going to happen. So, I mean, yeah, again, just be nice to everyone. Niceness is key. You have to be kind. You have to be nice. Don't be a douchebag. Don't be a dick. And, yeah, it actually does go a long way. So, I mean, there's really nothing else to say. In that regards, just be nice. Okay, I mean that's really the best thing I can do. Also, yeah, also during this time, during the Q&A, maybe before or maybe after, depending on the school. And actually, it may also depend on the judges, because some judges, they want to do it before, some judges want to do it after. And usually during this Q&A session or area is normally when you give them your headshot and resume, as well as any other forms they had to fill out, if you needed to fill out any other forms before that as well. And normally they give you the forms on that day when you enter, once you register and log in. So I mean, past that, now in terms of response, like when you can expect a response, sometimes it'll be literally that day, because I know Juilliard, I remember Juilliard and DePaul, they gave it to you on that day. However, some other schools could take at least a week to respond. So I know FIU, New World, SUNY, they all took about a week to a week and a half, I believe. I think SUNY was the longest, at about a week and a half or maybe 2 weeks, to respond. And yeah, I mean, past that, if you get a callback, congratulations. I don't know how that works, per se. I know Juilliards, they have like 2 or 3 different phases of callbacks until they eventually dwindle it down to the 20 actors they want. But past that, past callbacks, because I never made it that far. If you made it to callbacks, congratulations. But in terms of response, it will be either on that day or about a week after the initial audition date that you auditioned in. So let's say if you auditioned on, let's say today, September 3rd, and you'll hear a response on September 10th. So, just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind that the response time will be fairly quickly, which is what you should expect from a regular audition in and of itself. In a regular audition, the response time is normally relatively quickly within the first week of the audition. If you don't hear anything back from them, then that's a whole different situation. But you should more or less use judgment as to whether or not you got the part in that situation. So it's basically the same here. Here it's just a bit more concrete to actually tell you, hey, you got in, or hey, you didn't get in, or hey, we want you for a callback. And from my knowledge from a callback, it's usually the same process. It's usually a similar process where you go in, you talk with the judges who you auditioned for, and if maybe it's them, maybe it's not them. It depends on the school. But someone will work with you with their 2 monologues and song if you have to perform a song for them. And basically, they want to see if you could do it any other way. So whether it be an accent or just maybe change the way you're saying something. They just want to know how flexible as an actor you are, if you're good at taking directions, and that's more or less the point of a callback. And as far as I know, in terms of college, and that's about it. I know not many schools actually do callbacks, and that's the thing. I know Juilliard is the only school I auditioned for who did callbacks. DePaul kind of does callbacks, but not really. After that, I really didn't go to any other school who did callbacks. So. Yeah, but usually if you get a callback, or if they want you for a callback, I know for sure they'll tell you that day. Aside from that, good luck. Hopefully this helped anybody out who is looking for information on college auditions. That's more or less the process. Again, just bring your headshot, bring your resume, bring a charger as well, because it is going to be a long time too. Because again, minimum, you're going to be either between 2 hours to about 4 hours, depending on what school you're going to audition for. So, also bring a charger just in case, and also a snack just in case. That actually wouldn't mind. A bottle of water is what I always recommend. And as in terms of snack, I mean, I wouldn't bring a snack, but maybe some chewing gum for sure. You bring some gum so you have some fresh breath, and water for sure. I mean, past that, just anything that won't hurt your voice or make your voice sound funny should be good. So yeah, I mean, that's why water's the best for that. Just bring a small snack. For me, every audition I brought water, and that's about it. So I was good with that. And I always brought a pack of gum. But past that, I really didn't eat anything. So after the audition. So yeah, and also make sure you're not doing anything after the audition, because you don't want to leave while you're waiting for your audition. So make sure you have that day just planned out for the audition in and of itself. Okay, so. Yeah, hopefully this helped you guys with any information you need in terms of acting in the audition room for college, And yeah, last year when I was looking for research, I found a bunch of different pages just saying a bunch of different things. Some of them made sense, some of them didn't make sense. I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. Let me just go into the audition room. Let me go into the audition process for the colleges. let me just experience this myself, and then if I, and then I'll say what kind of advice I want to give out. And now that college is starting, now that high school is starting, I'm like, hey, you know what? Why not put this video out now? Because why not? So yeah, hopefully this helped you guys all out. And yeah, that's basically it for now. If you guys want to see a playlist of all the places I went to audition for in terms of college, I'll leave a link or a card somewhere right here. Subscribe as well, and that's basically it for now. This is Daniel Mart signing off.